Michael Haynes is an SMB business growth specialist. His focus and passion are empowering CEOs of small and medium-sized service-based companies to acquire business clients, B2B, and achieve the growth they seek through business innovation and sales. Michael is the author of Listen, Innovate, Grow, a guidebook for startups and SMEs to acquire and grow business customers. He's based in Sydney, Australia, and works with companies globally. Welcome to the podcast, Michael. I'm so excited for our conversation. I think it's going to be really fantastic for all those small business owners out there.
Yes, thanks for having me. Looking forward to the discussion as well.
Good. So why don't you tell our audience what you do, and then kind of more importantly, why you do it?
Great question, Pat. So Pat, I'm an SME business growth specialist. So SME as in small and medium enterprises. So I work with the CEOs of service-based small and medium organizations, like your professional service firms, your accountants, your lawyers, IT companies, telecommunications firms, transportation firms. So I work with those organizations and working with the CEOs to help them acquire and retain business clients and to drive business growth. So very much operating in what we call that B2B space. Yeah. So helping those SMEs, or as you call them in the US, SMBs, sell to other organizations.
Yes.
Now, why I do this, Pat, it's something that I love doing. I'm very impassioned about. My motto is all about empowering SME leaders to be able to acquire and retain those customers, build the growth and impact on life that they seek. I spent a lot of time in big corporate, and by working in big corporate prior to setting up my own company, I was saying, that there's lots of opportunities for great small and medium-sized organizations who are fantastic at what they do and could have great opportunities if they could get into these larger organizations as clients. But to do so, you really have to know how to understand, navigate, and work in with those larger organizations. So it's really about understanding the minefield, the playing field of B2B. If you know how to understand it, navigate it, prepare for it, it can provide massive, massive opportunities for small and medium businesses.
Wow, that's fantastic. So you might as well tell people where you're calling in from today too.
Sure. So I'm calling in from Sydney, Australia. So I've lived here in Sydney for, in a couple of weeks will be 21 years. But like many of us, I'm working 100% virtually right now. So while I'm based in Sydney, I'm originally from Canada, from Toronto, Canada, and I do work internationally. So my three core markets are Australia, Canada, and the US. But I am working with clients in the Asia Pacific region and folks in the European region as well.
And how do you get your clients?
How do I get my clients? So I get my clients through a number of ways. Speaking is a really core part of my platform. So I do a lot of speaking through a lot of podcasts. Prior to this pandemic, I was doing a lot of keynote speaking on stage, and now that switched to doing virtual speaking as well. So for example, back in April, I did a large virtual conference held by the Cult Gathering, which is this massive conference with a number of leading brand leaders and experts from all over Canada and the US, and a few others of us overseas as well. And we dialed in virtually. And so I did a virtual presentation to this big conference online virtual workshop. So
great.
Speaking is a core part of my platform. And then I will also augment that magazine publication. So I do write for 2 magazines here in Australia, Inside Small Business and Dynamic Business. So very much a lot around writing content. So content that's really focusing on helping to answer some of those key questions that small and medium-sized business leaders often have as they're now looking to take their businesses forward through the world of B2B.
Yes. So tell me a question that those small business owners would be wanting to know the answer to, and tell us your answer.
Okay, so some of the questions that I will often typically get is, how they should grow their business. I have one client, an Ottawa insurance brokerage firm, looking to grow the business through some of the younger customer segments coming through, and they want to have an understanding, what is the best way, what is the effective way to reach out and gain and grow and acquire those customers that they're seeking, and how to grow the business. That's often a key question that I'll be asked. Other questions will be around, well, they're looking to take their business forward. What sort of business model should I be taking for my business so that I can scale it, so I can make it more profitable? Often a question I'll get is they're looking to grow their business and they wanted to go into new markets, but not sure which market sectors they should be going into. So intuitively, they might be thinking, oh, I'm thinking maybe I want to expand and I want to go into the education sector. I want to go into the biotech sector. Which one should I be going into? So helping them get some clarity of understanding, what's the size of those markets, what are the market opportunities, and then what solutions they're going to have to approach and how they're going to be able to get in there.
Yeah.
So Pat, in answer of your question, how I do what I do. So the name of my company is called Listen, Innovate, Grow. And the reason why it's called Listen, Innovate, Grow, because those are fundamentally the 3 key activities that small and medium business owners have to undertake on a continual basis if you want to acquire and retain those business clients you want and ultimately achieve the growth that you seek. So I'll go through the framework for you now. So listening is all about gaining an in-depth understanding on 3 levels. You need to be listening to you as a company leader to understand, okay, what are your goals and priorities, objectives for the organization? What are the strengths of your organization? What are the strengths, core competencies that you have in terms of skills, people, methodologies? It could be in your offerings as well. Where have you gained success? So are there certain patterns? So doing an analysis to understand, are there certain patterns in terms of certain kinds of markets you're successful in, certain kinds of products you've been able to sell, certain kinds of customers you're able to dealing with. So by getting an understanding of really where you want to go and having understanding of the strengths of where you're good at, where you've had success in. Second level you need to listen to is listening to the market. So listening to the market is about getting an in-depth understanding as to both those industry verticals, those industries, those market niches, and those geographic markets that you're going into. So you need to understand, what's the size of that particular industry. Let's say you're looking, if you're an IT firm and you're looking to go into the hedge funds sector of the financial services market. I just had a client call about that, so I use that as an example. So you want to have an understanding, well, what is the size of the hedge fund market in the US? Is it growing? Understand what are some of the drivers and trends of hedge fund companies right now. What are their key requirements? In this case, would be from a technology point of view. What are some of their challenges? What are some of their requirements? Who are some of the competition? Doing a competitor analysis to understand who are the competition from an understanding from a customer perspective. What are some of the different alternatives in terms of competitive offerings? How do you stack up? So by doing this understanding of listening to the market, to understanding the drivers, needs, challenges of both those industries as well as the geographic segments that you're looking to go in, you'll get to understand where those opportunities are. And then you're starting to look at how do those needs, trends, or requirements and how the market is doing, how does that marry up with your goals and priorities of what you're looking to do.
So
go ahead.
Okay, before you go on to the next one, do you help your clients then do that listen step?
Yes, absolutely. So I very much work with the clients. My business model now, which we can talk to, is a do it with you. So whereas previously I was doing a lot of rolling up in the weeds, I was doing all the competitor analysis, all the market analysis, writing analysis. Now I will advise and guide my clients. So I will have workshops with them, working sessions where I will guide them through mapping out what the work needs to be done. So kind of mapping up the roadmap and the action plan of what they need to do to get them started and to then get their teams doing the work and going in and doing the competitor analysis and looking at the market. And I will conduct workshop sessions with them to go through the work that they're doing. So it's very much a do it with you where I will guide them, giving them a very clear roadmap and a very clear action plan of what they need to do to conduct this listening so that they're able to gain those insights that they require.
That's really a smart thing to do because so many people just launch off without doing that.
Yeah, so it's quite critical.
Yeah, they set themselves up for failure by doing that without knowing.
So it's listening to you, listening to the market. And the third is listening to customers. And in business to business, Pat, where people fall off is that often when people thinking about understanding customers and in a business to business context, they think at a organizational level. So for example, use an IT company, they want to get into United Airlines. Often people think about United Airlines, they'll think about the organization holistically. And, in terms of their strategies or objectives, their strengths, and what might be their core needs. In business to business, you must go one step deeper to the buyer level. You have to understand for your particular solution. So let's say in this scenario, we're talking about marketing technology systems that you want to use and hopefully sell into United Airlines. Then we have to get very specific and understand for marketing technology solutions, we need to understand who are the decision makers who will actually make that decision, as well as those that will influence the decision as to whether or not we want to purchase and utilize this IT consulting firm's marketing solutions. So you have to get down to the buyer level, and there are a number of specific things you have to understand at the buyer level, because at the end of the day, you're not marketing to United Airlines, you're marketing to that relevant group of people that make those decisions. That has to be the core and focus of your marketing and sales efforts. So that listening path of listening to you, listening to the market, listening to your customers, the buyers, that gives you clarity as to where to focus, who to focus on, and then what they need. Then next step is innovation. And now by innovation, Pat, I'm talking about business innovation. And now the true definition of business innovation, we're talking about making improvements and or introductions into your business. People tend to think innovation is invention and innovation is solely technology, and that is incorrect. What we need to be doing as small and medium business owners is based on understanding those needs that we've obtained through listening, then it's looking at opportunities to business innovate. Where can we make new introductions and or improvements within our business across one or more 5 areas? Could be around our products, could be around our services, could be in terms of the systems and processes that we're using to engage and serve and support our customers. It could be organizational innovation, so looking at joint ventures, strategic partnerships. Who can you collaborate? Collaborating with your suppliers, collaborating with your customers. Customer co-creation is a very impactful way. And finally, there's marketing innovation. And with marketing innovation, I'm talking about introducing some B2B specific strategies, things like influencer marketing, advocacy marketing, account-based marketing strategies. So very specific B2B marketing strategies that you can introduce based on those identified needs and opportunities you've obtained from listening. So innovation is making new introductions. And so by new introduction, I'm going to use my IT company again as an example. They may introduce something that a marketing strategy, let's say account-based marketing. That's something that is new to their company. So many other companies are doing it. So they may adopt that as a new strategy into their company. Innovation can also be new where you're taking things from other industries. So you might see something that's being done, let's say on the B2C side. For example, they're doing lots of online gamification and quizzes and that kind of thing. That's something that's being adopted in the B2B context. You might adopt that as a strategy of how to interact and engage with prospects. So the introductions can be minor or they can be incremental, and they can be new to your company, new to your industry, or you might get them from totally other different disciplines, different parts of the world. But it's about making those new introductions aligned again with market, customer, buyer need.
So are you the creative mind behind those innovations within the company? Like, do you lead?
Yeah. So Pat, it's my creative mind. It's a collective creative mind, because it's really coming from that listening that we're doing in terms of gaining that market understanding and understanding your market, your customers, and your business buyers, that you're going to identify where are those opportunities. A lot of this will involve doing the listening, which you do through various means, through customer workshops, doing online research, attending events. So there's a whole number of activities that you're going to do to gain that listening. And then you bring all of those insights together. And then it's through having those insights, you'll be working, again, you're going to be working cross-functionally, bringing the appropriate members of your team together to conduct workshops, which often I will do virtually with clients. And we will say, okay, here are some of the key learnings that we've obtained from our listening. Okay, well, what are some of the things that we can do in the organization across the 5 levels? What can we do? What are the priorities? Given who we're trying to focus on and what they need, okay, well, maybe we need now, I'm going to use my IT company example again. We need to come up with some new consulting offerings and solutions to meet the needs of these new clients we're going into, that they're going to need a modified consulting offering. Okay, so that's going to be a key priority. And maybe as part of delivering that solution, you know what, we're going to need to have to collaborate with another SME firm, maybe a marketing agency that has some specialization and could be able to leverage our marketing technology as an example. So now we're going to be implementing a second form of innovation. So a lot of those ideas will come by working with the clients, working together cross-functionally, but again, leveraging the learnings, that listening we've done to identify what are the areas that you want to be innovating. Just want to add, Pat, that they've done studies across the world to understand what are the characteristics of high growth firms. And high growth firms are defined as those firms that get 20% or more year-on-year growth for at least a 3-year period. Okay. And they've done this study across Australia, Canada, the US, and the UK, and across a number of industries. And high growth firms are those firms that tend to continually innovate in at least 2 areas over and just above product. So people often think it's about product innovation, yes, but high growth firms that maintain that high level of 20% growth, they're innovating in other ways. So they're doing marketing innovations, they're engaging in strategic joint ventures, outsourcing, they are improving their systems and processes. They're looking at those collaborations, but they're doing multiple things across the business. And so then finally, we have listen, we have innovate, and then grow. And grow, it's all about the ways in which you grow the business. So what are those growth pathways? So are you going to go after new customers? Are you going to go after new markets? Are you going to come up with new offerings or combinations thereof? So what's that growth pathway, growth strategies? Then it's also about managing that growth. So this is about how are you going to manage your people and culture, managing your finances, managing change, because as your business is growing and you're growing from being a 20-person small, medium business and you become a 50 to 100, 150, you're going to have change in processes, change in people. The business might expand. So you might have regional operations because you've expanded as an IT firm that operates just in the US. Now you have offices perhaps in Europe, you've got offices in Asia Pacific. So you've grown now, there's more complexity. So you need to have more processes. So how are you managing that growth? People is a critical factor, Pat. So, how do you acquire the right skills and people that you need? And how do you maintain them? How do you maintain that culture? A typical thing that I see, Pat, is often organizations are growing. There's a change in culture. So when they were smaller, there was lots of empowerment, being innovative. Now you're the 150-person IT company running in multiple regions. You've got a bigger organizational chart. The culture is going to change, but how do you still maintain that culture, particularly if you want to drive innovative thinking to bring new ideas in the business that you can execute and deliver to meet market customer need? So that's a listen, innovate, grow framework. So listening is all about getting in-depth understanding to know where to focus. Innovate is about business innovation, making new introductions and/or improvements across the business based on market, customer, buyer need. And growth is how are you going to execute that growth, but also manage and maintain that growth. And it's something that you need to be doing on a continual basis. You constantly need to be listening to the market. So talking to customers, attending events, you might be doing surveys, doing customer workshops, to constantly making sure you're understanding how your prospective clients and current clients' needs are changing so that you know how to respond to them. So then you can then look at how to innovate. Where do we need to make those introductions or improvements, modifications, so that you continually can be having that constant profitable growth, maintain those customers. So listen, innovate, grow, the 3 activities that businesses need to do, but recognizing them that you need to do them in a business-to-business context, which means it needs to be buyer-driven by the needs of the decision maker, what they need, what they want, and how they buy, as opposed to just trying to look at it from a customer level.
Yeah. So when you go to work for someone, then how long does it take for you to go through this process with them? Is it different for a company?
For a company, it's year-long plus engagements. It can be because you'll do the listening, and by the listening, we'll start with, okay, well, let's see what you have. What do you understand about your customers? What do you understand about your market? So often there'll be some kind of workshop where we look to bring together to see, well, what do you know? Who are the customers you're going after? What are you looking to do? and then we determine where are the gaps. So are there gaps where we don't have understanding? And then we determine how are we going to fill those gaps? Are we going to maybe do some customer interviews? Are we going to do some surveys? Should we be doing some online research where we're looking at reports from your industry associations? Could there possibly be some events we should be looking at? Google's your great friend. There's, you get access to a lot of industry reports. There's a lot of research companies that will be putting out studies on different topics, different industries. So we'll try to see how we fill that gap. And then from there, we get the roadmap. We'll get that roadmap that will say, okay, what are the things that we need to be doing in regards to the customers? And then it's about identifying what are some of the priorities. Once we have an understanding of customer need, what are some of the areas that you want to focus on? Because it's all about prioritization. Yeah. Small and medium businesses, we don't have massive budgets. We've got limited resources. So understanding those customer needs and say, well, which ones are most important that we can and should focus on, and then identifying what is required in terms of how we're going to innovate. So kind of doing that upfront strategy and action plan is what I call it. That is often the shorter part. That can take, 8 weeks or so to do that listening gap assessment and mapping out the action plan. Then a lot of it is around the execution, because the execution could involve filling some of those gaps in terms of understanding and knowledge, as well as identifying and working on some of those key elements. Like we might look to come up with a new consulting offering. So then it's gathering the right people from across the business to then start that program of work around, okay, we need to develop a new consulting service offering, and starting to pull the right people together to pull the components together. So your strategy action plan is often the shorter part. Typically, it's often in the actual execution of improving and building out your new products, your new systems, or if it's improving the customer experience, it's around working around those elements that can often be the longer component.
And so what sort of advice could you give to a really small business? So, a company that's got 5 to 10 employees, how can they take this information that you have and do it for themselves?
Sure. So with respect to, if you even a smaller organization, less than 10 employees, you still need to be listening to your customers. So you need to be making it a point, you should know who some of your best customers are. So who are those customers that are your most profitable customers that are bringing in your revenue, but also your strategic customers. You might have that client on board that, if you can win and succeed with them, they might be the source of referrals into other companies or into other key events that helps you to gain access to larger companies. So you need to start from there and have discussions. So start having a discussion with it, whether it's face-to-face or getting on Zoom, understanding how, where are they at now? How are they doing? What are they looking to do, move forward? Where are some of their priorities? Where are they feeling to get stuck? So having those kinds of conversations, record them, document them, and then go back, share with your team, this is what you've learned. What does that mean for us? Where could we possibly help them? How could we possibly help them? Okay, then who in the company do we need to get involved? Okay, our marketing coordinator, our salesperson, our frontline op person. Okay, and let's start planning and thinking at how we can better work together and work to meet their needs. So that whole listening is something that every organization can be doing. And you should be talking to customers. Every industry tends to have an industry and professional association. Go onto their website. They often will have an industry publication that they put out annually, or semi-regularly rather, which will have lots of insights on what are the trends, challenges. There could be some events coming up. So your industry and professional associations, and if it's not too expensive, you probably should be a member of that so you can network, make contacts, get those publications, get access to the other white papers and webinars, and spending some time with those, because that is another form of how you can listen to the market, listen to your competitors, listen to customers. So those are two very simple, but very effective ways to do that listening to gain an understanding. And Pat, I find not enough clients, organizations, big or small, do not spend enough time doing any kind of listening. Some have never picked up an industry publication, to go through and get some of those nuggets. And some rarely talk to customers. First up, it costs you nothing to, jump on the phone, get on a Zoom call, or if you have the opportunity face to face, and to have those conversations where you're asking those kinds of questions, but document them and share the learnings back into the organization. Because what you learn will mean implications that others will need to be involved if you want to execute. Could be products people, operations, your legal team may need to be involved, finance may be involved. So you need to share those learnings, share it across the organization. So those are two very easy sources that even small organizations can do and should also do on a regular, semi-regular basis as well. That's a key to being relevant to what business customers need. Because the needs are changing and the needs of business customers have also elevated. But if you are smart and know what those are, even your smaller organizations can make great inroads now into larger organizations now.
Have you found that things have changed quite a bit because of COVID?
Great question, Pat. So in the world of B2B, there are a number of changes that were occurring even before this all started. And that goes back to the change of needs of business buyers. So business buyers, so those decision makers involved in deciding to buy products and services, their needs have changed somewhat. They become much more demanding in terms of what they're looking for. And so as a result, there tends to be more people involved in the decision-making process. But what's really been happening over the past while is that there's too much of what I call content vomit. There's too much, everyone has been saying, content, you gotta put content out there. So put out your white papers, your lists, your articles, your webinars, and there was lots of that. There was lots of that before the pandemic. Last year, February, March, we all went into lockdown and everyone was just pumping out content. And the problem is that, yes, decision makers they do want information, they want information and advice. The problem was there was just lots of content going out there and business decision makers were getting quite confused because lots of content. Pat, you're saying one thing, Janice is saying another, Dan is saying another, I'm saying something else, and decision leaders are like, okay, I'm getting all this content. You're all reputable people, reputable experts, but you're all saying different things. I don't understand how it all connects and what makes sense for me. And so there is a bit of content fatigue. I've talked to some SME leaders. You just mentioned content. You mentioned the likes of social media. They roll their eyes now, but I don't want to be anywhere near it, Michael, because they've been bombarded. And Gartner Research did a study, and over 55% of business buyers are confused and frustrated by the amount of content out there. What business decision makers are looking for are what I call sense making and road mapping. They want you as a product service provider. So if you're, I'm going to use my IT firm again. If you're an IT consulting firm, they want you to come in and have the Zoom call, have the meeting where you're talking about what are the trends, what's going on within your industry, and to make sense of, okay, Pat has said this, Dan has said Y, Janice has said Z. What this actually means for your company is that you need to do F. So they want you to pull it together, make sense of what you're seeing, hearing, and make sense of it, and also give them the roadmap to say, this is what it all means, and these are the things that you are going to need to do in order to meet your objectives. So they want the marketing and sales activities now really have to rise now. So you as a business owner need to go in, you need to have done your listening, done your homework, so you know where the business is at, where it wants to go, and you can help them make sense of what all these experts and different people are saying, say what's relevant for them, and then help them on terms of mapping out that roadmap. What's the action plan to move forward? A lot of business decision makers, given all of this uncertainty that we were experiencing, they want that clarity, focus, and certainty of how to move forward. So that is really what we need to be doing. That also means that marketing and sales need to be working together. Marketing typically is the team that should be driving some of this listening of what's happening in the industries and the market, so you have a clear view of the landscape, what's going on in the respective industry, and what the customers need. And then you provide the salespeople with the right kinds of tools, insights, and information that they can then go and have those discussions with your prospective clients. So it's really what they're looking for is that road mapping and sense making, so that there's no buyer's remorse. So they're very clear what happens after the sale. Okay, I purchased from Pam. What happened when I purchased it from Pam's company next? How are they going to work with me? What's going to happen to help me achieve my end game? So that's really, so it really needs to be a change now from this show up and throw up with lots of content to really being clear on what your business decision makers, your prospective clients and clients are looking for, help them make sense of the environment they're dealing with, and then help them provide a roadmap as to what they need to be doing, how they need to be working together to get to where they want to go. That's really what business decision makers are looking for.
Good. Are there any other marketing and sales traps that we haven't discussed that you've noticed in the marketplace now?
I guess there's one thing, there's a couple, Pat. Shiny object syndrome is a big thing. A large part of what I find is that a lot of organizations, big or small, many people do not really understand marketing, and they're focusing on marketing tactics and the shiny new object. Oh, everyone's on TikTok, I need to be on TikTok. Or they're focusing on social media, and social media has its place. But again, strategic marketing, it's about understanding. It goes back to fundamentally, strategic marketing is grounded in listening. And the problem is that many business leaders, large and small, do not listen. They're not doing any listening. So they are not doing that listening, that understanding of the market. And they're jumping from tactics to tactics, which in a B2B context, they're not buyer driven. You want to be focusing on who your buyers are, who are the decision makers, what is important to them, and how they buy. Where do they go when they're seeking that information, guidance, sense making, road mapping? Where are they going for information? Is it industry associations? Is it white papers? Do they want demonstrations? Are they looking for customer workshops to work with you? You need to understand how they buy, because that defines your marketing activity. People are doing these random, well, I'm on social media. I had an engineering company last year. Michael, we're doing lots of work on social media. You develop tools to drill holes so that public transportation systems can create new subways around the world. Why is social media your primary, one of your primary forms of market? Well, we have to be on social media, but you have a very technical solution, and your decision makers, when they're seeking for information, is social media a key place that they go? Well, no, they go to certain engineering pure office X, Y, and Z. So well, this is where, well, those places where they go to seek for the technical, detailed information, that's where you need to be. So there's a lot of that shiny marketing objects that's kind of jumping around. That's one thing that's quite common. The other is marketing and sales, as I mentioned before, not working together. They're often quite in isolation. Marketing is off doing their own thing. Sales is doing off their thing. They're often not coming together, working together. They're not in alignment. Marketing and sales, in my view, in many organizations, which is starting to happen in more of the organizations in the US, I've been seeing, marketing and sales are being brought together. Very important in a B2B context, because the buying process of your prospective customers have changed. Buyers don't think marketing versus sales. Again, they're looking for, when you're selling, selling into your accounting firms, law firms, technical companies, they want to get an understanding, again, about how your solution is going to meet their objectives. So they want that. You have to go in almost as a consultant, as the expert, and providing advice, solutions. So your meeting, it may involve demonstrations. It may be involved some planning, some road mapping. So hence you need the skill set of both salespeople who have to be highly knowledgeable around their industries and their clients. And then you need marketing to have also been providing the understanding of some of those customer insights and creating those right kind of tools for sales. So if they need white papers or the diagnostic tools to help have the discussion. So the two need to be working together, and quite often, in many cases, they're still working separately, and it just doesn't work now, given how business buyers buy and what they expect. So those are some of the key things that I've been seeing.
Yes. And so what is your vision for your company for the future?
My vision for my company for the future is continuing to do a lot more work on an international level, working with SMEs, because my passion is all about empowering SMEs. So right now, my focus is working a lot with established CEOs of established businesses, but then looking to evolve and to be helping them on a broader level. So one of the things I'm rolling out is a mastermind program called Empower. And so masterminds, which are a peer advisory group,
Yeah.
So I'm creating my first group, which I'm launching in September, aimed at SME CEOs operating in B2B. And it's going to be a cross-functional and cross-geographic group to facilitate that exchange of ideas, information, and it won't be all about me. Yes, I'll be sharing about marketing, leading marketing, business innovation, and sales strategy, marketing, innovation, and sales strategy, but it's also to allow peers to learn from each other, exchange ideas. And so I'm looking to roll out, and I'd like to have a series of empower mastermind groups, ones that might be aimed then at more new CEOs of new organizations, ones that might be focused around various topics and niches, but to really help and empower emerging and current leaders to succeed in B2B. So that's kind of one of my key aspirations, and doing it through a mastermind concept where there's that peer interaction, exchange is one of the key ways I want to be doing so. And also, I guess, also continuing to do some work one-on-one, executive consulting with some select clients, and probably doing a lot more speaking where I can get out and educate, because there's massive opportunities for small and medium business leaders, for small, medium businesses, because the old saying, no one gets fired for hiring IBM, those days are over. There's lots of, and in fact, I've worked with some senior leaders back in corporate who, where they hired big corporates, and it was almost a big regret. How I got my first consulting gig was after I gotten in working for a company who they hired a big consulting firm to do a market segmentation project. They totally stuffed it up. They spent an insane amount of money. And they said, well, Michael, you come in, bring in your team, and you need to fix this. So if you are good at what you do, but you know how to navigate and understand the world of B2B, massive opportunities. So I really want to educate and empower folks. And speaking is a good platform to get out to lots of people, to show them that selling to other businesses and even trying to sell into larger businesses can be really a great way to grow your business. Larger revenues, consistent revenues, exclusive contracts. You can get those referrals to other clients, get referrals into other opportunities like speaking on big events, on big podcasts, all of which can further, be that growth engine for your business. But it starts with really knowing all about B2B, how to navigate. So the empowerment, taking my business to the next level, empowering through mastermind groups, through speaking, to really help our people of SMEs thrive and succeed.
That sounds fabulous. So what do you do for fun? Do you have time for fun?
Oh, you've always got to make time for fun. So I go to the gym quite a bit, cooking, travel whenever we get to do that again, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm a big track and field fan. Track and field is one of my favorite sports. So I'm watching quite closely, the lead up to the Olympic Games. I spent all of last weekend watching US Olympic trials, Canadian Olympic trials, Jamaican Olympic trials. So I get out and love to read as well. So definitely make time for myself to take a break, because you can only go at full speed all the time. And so looking after yourself is very, very important. So having that balance. So I typically try to take weekends. I switch off on the weekends and the computer is off, or at least not from a work perspective, so that you can recharge, have fun, because then that's how you are much more highly productive. The cylinders are firing to do all that strategic thinking and collaborating, but you have to have that time away to recharge, reset, so that you can then go hard.
Yes, exactly right. So one thing I always ask everyone on the Sort of Success podcast with me is, what are 3 traits that you think are necessary for people to exhibit in order to soar to success?
Great. That's a real great question, Pat. I think first of all is mindset. You've got to be constantly working on your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something where if you told me about a year and a half ago, I'd be like, yeah, sure, whatever. But after working with a couple mentors, because I have a couple mentors that I work with to help me work on my business, I've really seen the importance of mindset, because you really have to get your mindset right. And it's something you have to work on every day to make sure that you're in the zone, that you're backing yourself, that you're going to be able to have that decision maker confidence to take the right steps on how you're going to engage and work on a project, or take advantage of that new opportunity that you haven't really done before, but you know you should do it because it's good for you, it's good for your business. So constantly working on mindset. So I work on that every day. There are a number of podcasts that I listen to of a couple key people, and every day I work on that to really make sure that my mind is set and where it needs to be. So working on your mindset is one. I would say, secondly, listening is very important to soar to success. So you need to be listening, both listening to yourself in terms of, listening to what your true authentic self, what it wants, where it wants to be, what you want to be doing. And also listening as well, I would say, to the environment, what's going on. We can't be successful as entrepreneurs, as small business people, if we're not listening in tune with what's happening with our customers, what's happening with our environment. So that listening is very important. And the third one, perhaps it goes back to the first one, but you have to back yourself. At the end of the day, you really have to back yourself. It sounds simple, but that becomes quite critical when you are making some of those key decisions. Or, for example, for myself, I've just taken on a new project, working with a company in aerospace. I don't know anything about aerospace. This is a brand new field. This company is looking to grow, and they want me to assist them with their go-to-market strategy in a fairly quick amount of time on a big scale. I could have said no to that opportunity, stay within my zone of genius and what I'm comfortable with. But sometimes you have to back yourself and take that step for that new opportunity, even though you might be afraid to do so, because you'll figure it out. You need to back yourself, say yes, and then figure it out. Leverage your strengths, be resourceful. And I know I am resourceful, and take the appropriate steps and map it out. Okay, well, what am I going to need to do this? So those would be the three things. Work on your mindset. And if nothing else, folks, you must work on your mindset, because your mindset will define everything that you do. Are you going to make that decision to work with that business advisor or not? Are you going to make that investment in that new piece of equipment or not? If you don't, mindset drives everything in terms of what we do, how we do, what opportunities we're going to take. So mindset first, listening to yourself, and at the end of the day, you also have to back yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. Those are great. And I certainly agree with you. Well, thanks so much for being on with me today. How can people reach you or find out more about what you do?
Sure. Great question, Pat. So to find out about me, you can go to listeninnovategrow.com. And at listeninnovategrow.com, that is the central hub for everything that I do. So there are a lot of articles, there's videos. You'll find out around information around my services in terms of my consulting services, as well as Empower, the new mastermind program. So Listen, Innovate, Grow is a central hub to learn about all things B2B. And there's articles, videos, podcasts, as well as the service offerings.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks so much for being on with me today. It was really great.
Thank you for having me, Pat. It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Good. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Soar to Success podcast. For more insights into growing your business or improving your quality of life, visit soartosuccessmagazine.com and subscribe to the Soar to Success podcast on iTunes.